next thing is the hi-hat pedal. Now I was interested to see exactly what this hi-hat pedal was. I didn't know if it was a continuous controller or a trigger or what have you. So it ends up actually being both. It sends a continuous control message for most of the range, and then when you finally get to the bottom of the pedal, it's also a trigger just like any other drum. So it's velocity sensitive, so be stepping on it hard, and so there's that trigger underneath. You could make that do anything. Let's turn it into a bass drum pedal, for instance. Go down to the note here, and I believe it's 35. So whatever you want it to be, it's a pretty good trigger. Not as cool as actually having another head to beat, but you know, considering you already have it, I think that's a really good device. All right, so to start off with, when the trigger I/O by default, I don't know if any other presets use anything else, but the default preset that I was using, number 0 that comes with, sends out multiple note messages for the hi-hat, depending on where you have the hi-hat pedal. So let's watch this note number here on the trigger I/O. Note number 46 with my foot off, and then you'll see the note change as I press down. So we get 44, and finally 42. So that, you can change those too, but I'm pretty sure it's limited to just 3 notes. I might be wrong about that, but that's what it's set to be at default as. So BFD, on the other hand, has more than 3 possible articulations. So you're probably just going to want to set these all to the same note and just let BFD handle that continuous controller information. So let's look at my preset for, this is kit 0. Let's go to kit 1. In kit 1, we have, look at this, what it's going to display is the MIDI note number in a moment. So 34 the whole time. Now 44 is when I hit the pedal itself. So you can see that the sound of the pedal, or the sound of the hi-hat does change, but BFD's handling that. The drum kit's not sending out different note messages. So one more thing about the trigger I/O with the hi-hat pedal is the calibration seems to have a bug. So for most of the drums, the way that you select different drums and edit them is just to hit the thing. So I can see, like, look at this MIDI note number. That's sending out 38, that's sending out 34, whatever, different note numbers, and you can change that very easily with the value button. But another parameter to change is crosstalk, and that helps you keep drums from making other drums or cymbals sounding. So normally it's just a value between 1 and 7. You get more crosstalk rejection the higher you turn it up. But for the hi-hat pedal, it's a little different. It has a calibration mode. Well, it's not well documented, and all it really says in the manual is how to automatically set it. So that works out fine. You just hit both the value up and down at the same time, and then you're pretty much set to go. But then let's hit another trigger, and it's supposed to give you those numbers again, but it doesn't. So fortunately, the trigger I/O can be updated via a software firmware update through USB, so I hope they either fix that, or maybe it's just not documented well enough and I'm doing something wrong here, but you know, I wasn't told any different. So the way to fix that is to set up all your other drums first, and each time, here's another problem, it gets reset. So let's turn it off and go back to my kit number 1, and you'll see that I don't have any velocity sensitivity on this hi-hat pedal. Well, fix that by going over to crosstalk and hitting both buttons to automatically set it. Then we should be good. So we have dynamics again. But that means that you're going to need to do that every time, and because that screws up all the other pieces for crosstalk, you're going to want to set all your other kit pieces first and then worry about that afterwards. I just turned the thing off and turned it back on, and considering most everything else is set up, it's not a big deal. But it either is a bug or some other problem, just to let you know. Alright, so the manuals, on the other hand, for both BFD2 and for the trigger I/O are great. There's not much to the setup manual for the drum kit itself, aside from the trigger I/O, but I mean, I didn't know much about this thing going in. I didn't know anything about how the trigger I/O worked, and I found the manual to be easy to use to start off with that. And then I was going back and forth cross-referencing that with BFD2 just to get the best setup. So you know, I could do that thing with the hi-hat and get all the crosstalk working just perfectly. And I think the software is really cool too. I'm definitely going to upgrade, and their manual's great. Everything's pretty much great about that. So is their support. So there are a couple things that are not good aside from that bug, and those are some sonic annoyances. So the trigger I/O has a metal casing. Metal casing rings out when you hit it. Pretty loud. Now I understand them wanting to have metal because that's it's a hard shell, so it's going to prevent damage to the unit. The rest of it seems to be plastic or a mix of plastic and metal, mostly plastic though. So when that's even with 4 screws tightening it down on this thing, it resonates sympathetically when you hit a drum. Now I'm not going to put it back on there right now because that's a lot of work, but I was just really annoyed. I was hearing that buzzing, not quite as loud as hitting it with a stick, but not really all that much quieter. So what I did is I just took that thing off. I couldn't think of anything better for the time being, and with that removed, you can see the circuit board. I didn't want to get dust in that, so I just put 3 strips of packing tape on there. So it's a lot uglier. You can see that I have it at an angle, so I'm never going to see that. I'm just going to see the front, so it doesn't really make that much of a difference. But it would be nice if I could keep that thing on, have it look just a little bit better, and be a little bit more hardy. But that's how it is. And then the other thing that was resonating was the kick drum pedal setup. It's also made of metal, and probably for even a better reason, because this thing can take some abuse if you're going to be constantly kicking it, or something next to it. You want it to be sturdy. The problem with the sturdiness, or something that comes along with that sturdiness, is the ringing out again. So what I've done to make that a lot quieter is any place on here that we have some sort of joint where there's any room to do so, I just took some shredded memory foam and shoved it in the joints. That quiets it down considerably. And once again, it would be a lot of work to undo this, but trust me, that's a lot quieter than it used to be when it had none of the foam in there. So although the trigger I/O, they want to have a metal case, I understand that. I'm not sure exactly what they do. They'd have to damp that down somehow. This, I think, because it was such an easy fix for me, maybe Alesis could do something better with that in the future. But for now, I have a couple of fixes that might be ugly, but they do sound great and they work just fine. So I might recommend that to you too if you're also annoyed by all that stuff. So that's about all I have to say for technical issues. There are a lot of other information you can look up about this, but that's all on the Alesis site that I found. If you do have any other questions, go ahead and ask me. But overall, I love this kit. It's actually my first drum kit ever, and the reason that I finally decided to get this one, they announced it in February this year. I was really excited because it didn't have a drum module. It just has this trigger I/O. Every other kit in the price range, up to like an RET kit, it comes with a drum module. It's a hardware sampler, and I'm sorry, but hardware samplers have been dead for several years now. There's no reason that drums should be coming with that anymore. I know it's easy, so people can just plug in and play, but you're going to get a lot better results out of software like BFD or Superior Drummer or something like that. So this is a much more modern kit. I'm much happier with just the value you get out of this. The drums, they feel great. And it's very much like a real acoustic kit, as close as you can get, I think, in the price range and in the size and everything. I probably would want to upgrade to an RET kit someday, and I see this as just like a light version of that. You notice the drums are smaller and everything, but really it's like an RET kit, but just a lot cheaper by a couple $1,000s. So that's what most interested me about it. So I think Alesis is moving in the right direction, and if you do have any other questions about, not technical stuff or whatever about this kit, just let me know. Thanks a lot.